that. Deep breath. Well, hi, ladies. I'm so glad you guys could join us tonight for a little belated start to our Bloom Mentoring group coaching call. And I have 4 of our Bloom mentors here tonight to chat with everybody and just share some tips on homeschooling and maybe to answer your questions if you pop in on the call. So we have Amy from Texas. Wave, Amy. We have Tammy from Indiana and Margaret from Texas and Stacy from Kansas. Hi. And we also have Leslie joining us on the call, and any other mamas that pop in. If you guys have questions for our mentors, put them in the chat and tell us kind of what your big question or concern is tonight about homeschooling, and we will make sure to get to those before the call is over. So if you are popping on here, be sure to type in the chat whatever question is really on your mind and your heart, because our goal is to help you guys to figure out what it is that will help you keep homeschooling and bloom and be successful and confident in this journey, because we don't have it all figured out, but we've probably tried many different things and researched many different things. And I know that these ladies have lots of knowledge that they are ready to share with you. So I'm going to start off by asking each of them just a random question so that you can hear kind of their perspectives on various things related to homeschooling. And then again, if you have specific questions you want to ask our mentors, just put those in the chat and we'll answer those then. So let me start out with Tammy. Tammy, would you share with us maybe 1 or 2 tips for getting a child? So we're like a month into the school year, maybe 2 months, depending on when you started. But a child who's like, I hate school, this is boring. How do you deal with that? How do you approach a child who just really does not want to do the work right now because they're just over it? Oh, I can't hear you. Uh-oh. There you go.
Uh-oh.
We got you
now.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Okay. So I actually have one of those lovely children, and what I choose to do is I actually have devoted specific time to work every single day that child, and go over certain subjects that I feel like need to be addressed, and then anything that she may feel like she has questions about. So just kind of, I guess, it's usually at the end of the time after she's done her independent work, we usually go in and I guess do an evaluation of the day, and then also go over any concerns, like I said, that I have.
Awesome. I like that. So like a dedicated time to go to that child and say, so what do we need to do? How can I help you? Yeah, that's so important to be on a team.
Yes.
Amy, what about you? You ever have any reluctant kids? You're grinning over there.
Oh, no, never. My kids are perfect. Yes, I have more than one of those kids, in fact. What's helped if they're on the younger side is more frequent breaks. I'll say do, 3 questions on this page, and then we're going to bear crawl. And then you can crawl like a crab back to your desk, and we'll do the next 3 questions. And that works. And we take frequent breaks, and we'll do one subject, then we'll have a break, and then we do another subject, then we have another break. There's lots of breaks. And once they get older and that, the reason kicks in and they're at the age of reason, we get a little bit not so many breaks. It's more natural consequences of, we can do all these wonderful things you would like to do, like the park and computer time and going to ride bikes outside, but your work has to be done first. And they have a daily checklist, so they know what's expected. I know what's expected because I wrote the checklist down, and they know that those things must be complete to do the fun thing. And if I don't check the checklist and they do the fun thing, then I really make sure to check the checklist tomorrow to make sure they don't do the fun thing first. But that's one of those things, don't expect what you don't inspect. And I'm still working on that one.
Excellent.
But,
okay.
yeah.
Good. So like a similar answer, like you make sure that that child knows exactly what's expected and you work with them on what their needs are. I like it.
And kind of what Tammy said too about she does it every day. The consistency builds up, and then it's not as much of a fight because they know that's part of their routine. So if you can consistently do it on a regular basis, it tends to be less of a fight. So then it's not as hard for anyone to do.
Fantastic. Yes. Fighting with our kids is not the goal of homeschooling. We want to avoid that wherever possible. Super, super. Well, before we go on to our next question, I just want to welcome everybody who popped in. If you guys open your chat, that is the best place to ask our mentors your questions. And when we get to your questions, we will give you the chance to elaborate or whatever if you need to. But whatever is on your heart and whatever you're wondering right now about homeschooling, pop into the chat box here. We have Amy, Margaret, Stacy, and Tammy here to give their insights and experience and share what they have learned in their journeys. So we talked first about kid motivation and how to motivate the child and how to kind of handle the child who's not thrilled about doing schoolwork right now. But what about mom? Because I don't know about you, but sometimes I just don't really want to do all the stuff we're supposed to do. Stacy's laughing at me. So Stacy, how do you keep yourself motivated to do the things that need to be done to make homeschooling successful in your house?
I bribe myself. Is that the
valid answer?
Is it not true? You know, because like when you approach a subject that's really, really vicious, like math, you have to really find the inner motivation to do it, because especially when you're homeschooling more than 1, 2, 3 kids, you're doing like 4 different levels of math. And often I bribe myself with just something small, like I'm gonna have this cup of coffee while we're doing math, or like in my case, I'm gonna have this giant glass of iced up Dr. Pepper, because I need all of the sugar and happiness to get me through that, through math. But like just little bribes for yourself, I think is, the same thing that motivates your kids, like you need it too. We have to bribe ourselves for all kinds of things, like to exercise, to eat right. This is the same kind of situation. And just small attainable goals. And then maybe bigger goals, like I'm going to buy myself another book, or
Awesome.
You know what I mean? I think if you give yourself a small goal, you're more than likely to hit it. Like just a little bit of stretch to hit that goal. And at least for me, especially if the day is dragging on and I haven't finished all the math that I have to do, like that small goal with we're going to finish. And then I'm going to go to Starbucks and get myself an iced chai latte.
Awesome choice.
I don't see the downside. You're happy, the work is done. What else can we ask for?
This is a very good point. How about you, Margaret? Do you ever have those days that you don't really want to do all the homeschooling? I know that Stacy did a dig on math, and you're a math lover, and that's totally fine. We still love you. But surely there's something that you don't look at.
Yes.
That you have to make
for me, when what's going through my brain when Stacy was saying math, for me it's writing, teaching writing or paragraphing or trying to, grammar I'm good with, diagramming sentences I'm good with, but just teaching writing, yeah, that's my thing. But so, and for me, the biggest thing is consistency and keeping to a routine, for one. I can very easily find myself getting distracted by other things or saying, okay, well, I'm just going to go over here and do this or make this phone call or do that. And then I'm kind of in a different place right now. I'm down to my last kiddo that I'm schooling. So sometimes it's and she's a junior in high school, but sometimes there's the temptation that, okay, she's independent, but then I know, trust but verify, there's things that I need to go through and look at with her. And it's just saying, okay, yeah, I'm going to definitely, have a structure that I know I'm going to look at this, and this every day. And then the other thing too, is, we write our kids planners or we use the online checklist or however we do our daily list for our kids is, again, to, and especially when they're younger, is that you maybe even throughout the day have said to, say to yourself, okay, at this point, I'm going to do the progress check with this child, and then having that kind of either midday and or end of the day where you're just going to go through and verify everything with them too. And the other thing too that someone said to me years ago is if you're at work, if you're working a job, you're not going to be taking time off to, okay, let me go home and throw in a load of laundry or do this or do that. You're not going to be distracted from what your primary focus should be there. So almost, putting it in your mind that, okay, my job during these hours is and my priority is to be focused on school with the kiddos. And everything else, even though it may seem, urgent, but not important, right? You guys have heard maybe that kind of before, like something being urgent and not important, or again, not being distracted by that as well. Sure. And then finally, and actually most importantly, is on the really tough days is to just pray in the moment for, praying on the fly that I need the graces right now. I need the motivation right now. I need the patience with this child right now to do whatever. And, our children find lots of ways every day to put lots of jewels in our crown. And we sometimes can have self-inflicted difficulties too. So it's just, again, the planning and the vision to avoid that, but then also in the heat of the moment, asking God for the graces and giving yourself the grace to regroup and to, not take everything to heart that, okay, I fell a little short today, but I'm going to do better tomorrow, or this is how I can, kind of fix things midstream or what have you.
That's excellent. Yeah, I think we do need to give ourselves and our kids grace with both when we're struggling with motivation, when they're struggling with motivation. We have to do all the practical steps. We have to check in and keep ourselves accountable and be consistent, but to just also give ourselves that grace has to be the priority, because we're not perfect and there's no way we're going to be perfect in this lifetime. That's a really good thing to remember as we talk about motivation. So we have a couple of questions on the chat, as I said, a couple of times. If you guys have questions you want to ask our mentors, pop those in the chat boxes and we'll go through those. So we're going to pop over there and go to Leslie's question. Leslie asks, I'd love to hear how long you all hold on to curriculum that you have acquired but aren't using right now or in the near future. Trying to be flexible but not be a hoarder or a junkie. I see some smiles. Amy, what do you do?
Hold on to it forever. No, I still have a kid who hasn't started schooling yet. So I have a high schooler down to a kid not doing school yet. So I'm holding on to it forever. And unless one thing I have learned, there's a couple of programs I know that do not work for me to teach my kids, or they haven't worked for at least a couple kids. And I'm like, bye, see ya, you can go. We are never going to use you. You're taking up valuable real estate. See you later. But for them, we found a lot of what has worked, and I'm holding on to it forever, never letting it go. I mean, I will eventually, but we're not there yet. So
keep what works, do what works. I like
right.
that. Tammy, what about you?
I would probably say the same, because I have a 8th grader down to a 3-year-old. And Well, this year I did decide to enroll in a program. And so I actually did everything that there was lots of tears for more than one child. As even if I loved it, I got rid of it so that I could just hold on to um, either that curriculum that I'm enrolled in or things that I know that will work in case I need to sub some things out. But everything
Right.
else had to go.
Gotcha. That's wise.
Yeah.
Okay, well, I guess I'll pop in here because my youngest is 7, so I'm starting to get rid of stuff. And I guess the way I decide what stays and what goes is I look at the next couple of kids that are going to use it. And by the time they get to be a certain age, you kind of start figuring out what works and what doesn't, what they like and what they don't. I have one daughter and then 3 boys under her. So a lot of the stuff that worked for her is not going to work for my boys. And I knew that in the past. I guess I knew that as soon as my youngest started kindergarten and I started to see how he learned. And I was like, yep, he's never going to do the stuff that she did. She's a girl and she liked girly things. And she had, just had different priorities and strengths. So some of that I've been passing on. But like Amy and Tammy said, I really do keep a lot because if it works, I don't want to rebuy it. Although I have had to rebuy curriculum before when I realized it did work for one child and not another. But I think my advice would be to hang on to it until your last kid won't use it. Because, unless it's like you said, as Amy said, unless it's something that you hate doing yourself and it's not going to work for you, or there's lots of tears, then it might be something, to hang on to, because I just keep going back to the same stuff. I mean, in the end, even now, as my youngest is doing a lot more of the same second grade work as my oldest did than the other middle 2 did. Like, it's just, I kind of have come full circle. I've tried all the other things and I've come back to what I loved in the beginning. That's my thought on that. Stacy, want to jump in?
I'm not sure if Leslie's aware, but it's not hoarding if it's books.
Of course.
I mean, it doesn't count.
Wiser words were never said by a homeschool mom.
It's only hoarding if it's not books. I mean, that's probably in the dictionary. Hoarding, keeping a bunch of junk, parentheses, not including books. Period. Just saying.
Okay. Fair. Margaret?
Let me unmute myself. Yeah, it's like, I just saw one of the memes, I forget who's the organization lady, don't keep more than 30 books. Yeah, right. Okay.
Marie Kondo, yeah.
The other thing I would say too, two things actually, is the stuff that you're hanging on to pass down or to use again, try and be real disciplined about it and have it stored or put away in an organized way. I'm not always been successful at that, but sometimes it's like, okay, I know I have this somewhere and I can't find it, but try and group it by grade level or group it by subject. And if you're not going to leave it out on your bookshelf, again, put it in a way that you can easily find the things again. And then as I'm finding, I have actually been doing a big clean out in my house. Keep things because you think you're going to really use them and they're useful to you, not because you're sentimental about it and you think about, okay, well, maybe I would use this again, or I could use this for a co-op class, or I could do this, or I could do that. No, pass it on, bless somebody else with it because they can use it. And it's sitting in your closet and, 5 years later, you're going to come back and say, oh, no, but I might really use this sometime. No, again, find that balance. And like y'all said, the stuff that you think you're really, really going to use.
That's wise. Yes. The organization is key. That is why I have rebought curriculum that I didn't think I had. And then that is why I was missing a DVD this year, because I remember having 2 copies and then apparently both of them are now gone. But anyway, organized. Good answer. Good answer. Leslie, does that help? Do you have any follow-up thoughts or questions, specifics that came to mind as we were sharing? You can unmute if you want to share anything. Go ahead.
Yeah, no, I really appreciate that. And to Stacy, my husband's a librarian. So you would probably agree about books not counting for hoarding.
Oh, see,
He's an enabler.
and I would bet that the majority of husbands actually would want you to get rid of all the books. And so you're just living the life.
Yeah.
God loves Leslie. Man.
But thank you, gals. I really appreciate your perspective on it. It means a lot.
That's a good question. Thank you for asking it. So as I said before, anybody has questions for our mentors, pop those in the chat so we can make sure to get to them before the end of the call. We're going to go now to Carla. Carla says, I understand that instruction time for a nearly 6-year-old should be somewhere around an hour total. I'm struggling to get just the core subjects done in that time frame. It's just taking too long, and my son checks out at around the 45-minute mark. It is frustrating and discouraging. Any ideas or tips? I'm going to ask you, Carla, if you want to unmute yourself and give us a little more information about what you are trying to get done or what the core subjects are that you'd like to get done, so we can kind of formulate some ideas that would help you, if you can do that.
Sure, thanks, no problem. So we're just doing math, we're doing reading, and we're doing handwriting, and religion. And I'm starting off really slow, and for different reasons, we started off later than I would have liked to. So I think that's adding that level of frustration for me personally. I don't really think my son really even knows, what's going on or my timeline per se, but I would love to add, morning basket, but I didn't want to just do it all right off the bat. And so I thought, okay, we'll just ease into it. And so maybe it's just a matter of giving ourselves more time, but I'm not sure. I just see
how long have you guys been schooling?
So we did preschool, and so it's going about a year.
Okay. And so when you started these new subjects, it's been about a month, a couple of weeks?
It's been about a couple weeks.
Okay.
Yeah.
Awesome. Very helpful information. I see some of our mentors nodding. Stacy, you want to jump in and share what you would say about a 6-year-old? Well, I'm going to interrupt. Hold on.
Yeah.
Carla, I want to commend you first for keeping it simple and just choosing those subjects first, because you're right. You're doing exactly the right thing. Yeah.
Thank you. It's hard because I'm really excited and I wanted to just do it all, but I've been watching lots of videos and participating in lots of Zoom calls and reading. So I know I have to just take it slow.
Right.
Awesome. Okay, Stacy, go for it.
An hour is a good amount of time, but when people say it should take about an hour, they don't mean all in one sitting. I find that, and this was advice given to me by Matthew C. I called Matthew C. and had some questions, and the experts at Matthew C. said, and I've read this in other homeschooling books and such, whatever their age is,
The other one.
add 3 minutes, and that's about as much focus as they have in that subject. So your child is 6, so go for 9 to 10 minutes of math and then stop. Because that 10 minutes of focused math is better than 45 minutes of trying to get their attention. Do you know what I mean? It's more of a quality versus a quantity. And then as they get older or they have interest in the subject, then go beyond those 9 or 10 minutes. That's fine. But if you just get 9 to 10 minutes of hit focus time, I mean, for 6 years old, that's amazing. Especially for a boy.
Mm-hmm.
So 10 minutes of math, have a snack. 10 minutes of handwriting, go jump on the trampoline. 10 minutes of reading, have lunch. And then, in the afternoon when everybody's cozy and quiet, then sit down for religion, Okay. Especially religion, you don't want to be angsty or feel that anxiety of we need to get it done, because you want them to always associate that with love, if that makes sense. You know what I mean? you know,
Yeah.
and that's good for you too, because if you're feeling that anxiety, sometimes when we sit down to do religion and we're just reading about God's love and God's transformational mercy and, you know, just reading the things about our church and our church history, that actually helps. At least it does for me.
Right.
You know,
Okay.
so yeah, that hour, it doesn't mean all at once.
Definitely.
Yeah, that's super helpful. Super
Yeah, I think
helpful. So I have to kind of shift that mindset of just trying to get everything done by a certain time and just spacing it out.
If you had a perfect robot child, it could be that.
Awesome.
Heard of these unicorn children that like to sit down and just work through a stack of workbooks and just get it over with. I don't have one of those unicorn children.
And I think I will add to that too, that I think that this is normal for a 6-year-old. This is exactly what to expect, and that will change. And eventually it will look more like what you're imagining, where you're sitting at a table for an hour or two. Probably not 2 with a boy, but
Yeah.
you know, they need to move, they need breaks. And certain personalities, not just boys, they just need to get up. But yeah, that especially with starting out and that work to do it that way. The other thing I would add is, one tip to make things go faster is to do it out loud, or do the math on a dry erase board, or do, you know, the handwriting has to be done written. But you know, kind of be flexible with what you're expecting as well, because I think that can help things move along a little more quickly. Carla, does that help? Do you have
Super,
follow-up?
yeah, super helpful. Yeah, thank you so much. And I do have to kind of think outside the box in terms of, like, you know, just taking into consideration what you're saying about, you know, them needing the break and needing to move, and just those subjects where you don't really have to sit and write, to make it more movement based and more fun.
Yes, and I would say that when you're ready to add in that morning basket and you feel more at peace, you know, even if you do that soon, because it's what will bring you joy. Like, he's going to be all over the place, and that's okay. Like, morning basket for us is a time when my kids are kind of hanging upside down off the couch, and as long as they're not interrupting me, we're reading and talking and having that time together. And, you know, again, with a 6-year-old, that's going to be short, you know, 10 or 15 minutes, but it might be much easier to add in than you think, because it's a lot more relaxed in its style and its delivery.
Okay, thank you.
You're so welcome. Thank you for asking the great question. So as we said at the beginning, if anybody has questions they want to drop in the chat, we have another question here that says, any advice for having kids transitioning from subjects at different times? So I think you mean like going from one kid going to another subject while another kid's still working on that subject and kind of managing all of that. Is that kind of what your question is? Okay. Feel free to add any clarifying. I'm going to go to Amy for this one because I know that it's not the easiest thing, and you've shared with me some of those challenges with your kids doing the same thing, but I know you found a few things that work for you.
So I just want to clarify, is it different kids going to different things at the same time?
We have the same subjects in the same order, but, like, you know, some kids are like super quick, like, let me get it done, and then they're like tapping their pencil, and I'm like, oh. So yeah.
How
you know,
old are your
they're like ready to move on, where the other ones
Right.
like still, like, you know.
How old are your kids?
I have a 7th grader, a 5th grader, and a 2nd grader.
Okay, so some of them are capable of doing independent work, I'm guessing, based on the ages. Okay. And do all of them require some direct teaching from you?
No,
Okay.
but they're all like, all of them seem to be so excited, like, or they'll have a question, you know? So I'm
Okay.
still on the first subject, but the other one's on the 3rd subject, and they have a question about it, and I'm still on the first, you know, that kind of thing.
Yes. Okay, so in our house, I had to totally eschew everyone doing everything at the same time.
Okay.
Everyone at the beginning of the week gets a list of their stuff, and I will highlight the things they have to do with me on a certain day. Other than that, my older kids, they have a list and they can just go. So they're not waiting on me, which for them has been huge because they feel independent and they like that independence and that they can do their work whenever they want to. My 5th grader, who is a girl, and girls are amazing with school, it's fabulous and wonderful. She finishes most of her work before noon, and that is a totally foreign thing to me because my 2 older ones are boys, and that was never going to happen. So she gets her list on Monday. She's usually asking me for it on Sunday because she's one of those special girl unicorn children. And she will work on her stuff. And in the morning, I work with my non-reader. That is my dedicated time with him. After lunch, I go through my big kids one at a time, and I will ask them, what do you need my help with? What are your questions with? Specifically with your kids having questions with a certain thing, you could put a Post-it note on that book, and they could write the question out. That helps them remember, and then that visual cue of having that Post-it note on top would remind you to ask them, it looks like you needed help with this. How can I help you? So they're not waiting on you to complete their work. And that makes it sometimes easier for them and for you because you're not trying to make the pencil tapping stop that's annoying everyone else at the table. So that has been something that's really helped us, is letting them do their own thing and progress as they need to. And then after lunch, I just go through the kids one at a time. What do you need help with? How can I help you? Now, the tricky part of that is you end up doing math 4 different times, but at least you're not doing 4 different maths at the same time. So it kind of depends on how your brain works. One of those might be easier or harder than the other. Has this way you've been doing it been working for you up until this point, with everyone doing the same thing at the same time?
So, well, last year was my first year, and and that was very regimented. But I should also point out that I have a younger son. Actually, I have 3 younger than them.
Okay.
One of them has a critical illness. So them being on their own last year was really helpful because I wasn't here a lot. But this year I felt really bad. So I was like, all right, I'm going to make up for it. And I'm going to do all this stuff with them. And so I'm like, oh my gosh, what was I thinking? But yeah, I think I should just go back to letting them be a little bit more independent. The older ones, especially my 5th grader's a girl, and she wants to work ahead and do everything on one day, which I don't allow. But
with the working ahead, a friend of mine had this with her kids, and what she recommended is you can work ahead for the whole week or for the whole year as long as you finish this day's work first. So you have to do all the subjects for today first, and then if you want to work ahead, you can. But because then they don't get, for way behind in math and way ahead in English, it keeps it, at least the math stays up to date, but it still allows them that freedom to work ahead if they want to, because if they want to, why not? That's why we homeschooled it, for that flexibility. So go for it if you want to. But so that could be something else to consider as well, just to set that routine in place. You can work ahead, but finish all the stuff for today first.
Okay.
Right.
Set that parameter.
All right. Thank you.
Cool. Sure. Let me call on Margaret to possibly give some insight. I know you only have one left at home, but I know you remember when you had the 2 girls and they were schooling together. So what thoughts do you have on this?
So one thing, it's really easy to get caught up in, okay, I'm working with one and then the other one is interrupting or saying, but I need help with this, or can you answer this question? So this is, again, this is from a virtue standpoint of trying to build up the patience, okay? So if you and I don't know if I'm hearing that you're getting that you kind of feel like sometimes you're getting hit from both sides by more than one kid. So some of it too is to instill in them that again, and as Amy had said, having a way to communicate to you that they need help, but then building the expectation that, okay, right now I'm working with someone else, so we need to wait. You need to just build that patience and wait, and I will help you, but not right this second. The other thing is, from just kind of a planning or structural standpoint, is to have specific times perhaps that you're going to work with each child. If there is subjects that you, as Amy had said too, she highlighted the things that needed to be worked on with mom. Okay, and for them to know, okay, because what's hard too is if they don't know what to expect. But if they know, okay, yeah, I can work on these other subjects independently, and then mom is going to work with me at 11 o'clock or before lunch, or again, just kind of having that general time frame in mind. And then reminding them that, okay, my time to work with you is coming up. I just need you to be patient and let me work with your brother or sister here first, because it's their time right now.
Mhm. That's
Okay.
really good advice. Yeah, I think that that's key. I know I encourage my kids to be independent as soon as possible. So they do a lot of their work on their own, and they know how to come get my help or how to ask for my help. And then, having that patience on taking turns. My younger ones take turns with me. Like, they get their time with me, but they're taking turns back and forth. And they know in patterns that first I work with one and then I work with the other, and back and forth, so that they learn that. So that's good to point out that that's virtue building too. Does that help? Does that give you lots of ideas?
Yes, thank you very much.
Oh, I'm so glad you asked. Oh, that's excellent. Like I said, if you guys have other questions and you want to stick those in the chat, please do that. I'm going to throw in a question here for my mentors, though, that came differently. This is for those watching that may be considering homeschooling and doubting if they can do it or how they can do it. And I'm wondering if a few of you could share what would you say to them if they are just not quite ready to take the plunge and thinking, can I do this homeschooling thing? How do I do this homeschooling thing? Am I enough to do it? Tammy, what would you say to that mama?
Let's see. I had lots of doubts before I started homeschooling, and I don't know, I just asked for grace and mercy. You're not supposed to pray for patience, but I did. And just kind of just went with it. I felt like that's what I wanted to do, what was best for our family, what I was being called to do. And so I think that if you're wanting to homeschool and you really feel like that's on your heart, then just do it. You really can't mess it up, because they're your children and God gave them to you. And so I don't think you're going to mess it up.
That's beautiful. Thank you. So good. Okay, we will go on to our next question. Carla asks, can I get a bonus question? Yes, absolutely. Send all the questions. What's a good way to organize books when creating a home library? Our home library is starting to grow, and I want to be able to have an efficient system where books don't get forgotten. I'm not the one to answer this question. We have so many books. I don't know. Amy?
So there are apps you can do, and they scan the ISBN number of your book, and it will keep a record of all your books. And you can even, some of them you can even differentiate. So like if you're, like we have a tradition every year, we get a kid a book for their birthday or St. Nick's Day. So you can scan it in under that kid's name, or you could scan it in under the subject. So you can do that. As far as keeping them organized on the shelves, I have lots of little people, and I want them to read the book, so I'm not real strict on they have to be in alphabetical order by the author or anything. But what I found, because that's just, I mean, I have a friend that has done that, and I'm not going to do that. That's just not me. But what I found that helped is you can get colored electrical tape, and you can put it on the spines of the books. So, and then we organize our shelves by that color, so the kids know, like, green is science. So all the green tiny little stripe of tape for science books all go in one section on the shelf, and all the blue ones for history go together, and all the white ones for religion go together. And the Christmas ones are red and green, because why not? But they all go together. And so that's just one way we practically organize them on a bookshelf. But as far as and then for curriculum books, those stay separate from all the reading books. And I organize by subject. I know some people like to do it by year, but I go by subject, because sometimes my kids go through 3 math books in a year versus the 2 they're supposed to. And so that doesn't always work. So I like doing curriculum by subject, but some people do it by grade level, and it depends on your program you use. One might work better than the other. But as far as overall organization of inputting all the books you have, one of those apps would be a great thing to try. And some are even free, which is even better.
This is true. Stacy, who says you can never have enough books. Do you have any thoughts on organizing them? Or at least I like the part of the question that books don't get forgotten.
I stepped in it with that, didn't I? So the issue in our house is that because we're military, organizing our books changes like every 2 years, depending on the room where we can put the shelves that contain the books. So this is one of our struggles, and the only thing that I have really found, not that I want less books, because I don't. I want more books. The only thing that I have found that kind of helps is that we have the vast majority of our books in one location that's big enough to host like 3 shelves in a row. And then I have another shelf in the classroom with the books that they use every day. And then another shelf for curriculum that I need all of the time. So not all of the curriculum is housed there. The curriculum I'm definitely not using goes to the big stash of books that's in the 3 shelf unit that's off somewhere else. The kids all have a small little bookshelf in their room, so they have their favorite titles there. And then I have one smaller shelf here with preschool books for my itty bitty baby or like seasonal books. I don't know if this is helpful to everybody. It's just helpful to us because our books get packed up so often that to spread them all out or to have them all out in one space is just not practical, because in every house we move into, the rooms are all different sizes.
Right. Good points.
So in some ideal future dream home, I will have all of my books on beautiful shelves organized, probably by subject. I guess that's something that I can contribute, is that there's no wrong way. Like, some people prefer by subject, some people prefer by grade, or some people prefer by genre. There's no wrong way. It's just whatever works best, for your family. I've tried by grade level, but then some books go like for 2 or 3 grades, and then they all kind of get all mishmashy. So I just keep it by subject.
That's cool.
Yeah, it's a struggle, but it's just part of the military life.
Right. Yeah, that's a really good point. We've moved a few times, not military, but just it does change here and there. And I'll just share the kind of, I'm a very structured, organized person. I would like to have them all perfectly organized the way I would like them, but with kids, that's not practical because they can't be like me. But the thing that's worked for us as far as where the books go, and my kids know where the books go, so at least I know where to go look for them. Mm-hmm. So we have most of our fiction books downstairs and most of our nonfiction books in the schoolroom, even though they're not all school books. They're just, mm-hmm. Magic School Bus and all those things. And with the fiction books downstairs, like the bottom shelf are the board books and the readers. And then the next shelf this is 2 bookshelves, so we're talking 2 shelves. The next shelf is paperbacks of picture books. And the next shelves are hardcover picture books, because my kids can put stuff away at least by paperback and hardcover. And if I know, okay, I'm looking for a book and it's paperback, that cuts in half what I have to look through. And then above that are all the chapter books that are fictional. And then upstairs, we have a shelf for religion, 2 shelves for religion. We basically have a picture bookshelf and a chapter bookshelf for religion, a picture bookshelf and a chapter bookshelf for history. Then we have a science shelf, and then we have a shelf that's geography and math split in half. And those are kind of the kid access books, and they have their favorites in their rooms, just like Stacy said. My books are kind of in different categories, I guess. And then I have shelves in the garage for the stuff we're not using this year. So for me, it's more about making sure my kids can clean up the books in a way that if I need to go find one, I know kind of where it is. And that, that works for us. I like your tape idea, Amy. That would work as well. Just something that works for the kids.
I do want to add, like maybe a couple years ago, I started keeping all our religion books on our feast table, which is really a buffet. So it has like a couple of drawers and has a couple of open shelves. So I've just put all of the religion books, all of the saint biographies, like anything pertaining to religion, I keep there. So then I can have an easy access to decorate the feast table. Like a couple of years ago, I made that like an intention that I wanted to do in our homeschool, to have a feast table. Because sometimes, you know, you can have the book, but are you ever going to open it sometimes if it sits in the shelf? Whereas if you put it on display in the feast table, you know, a saint biography or a picture of a saint or whatever, and you have it right there looking at you, you're more likely to just kind of pick it up and read it.
Yeah.
Maybe
No, that's really key. I bought one of those hanging bookshelves where the books face out. It's a small one. It just has 3 layers like like a school teacher would have. I think I got it on Amazon for like $20. And so I'll put seasonal books in there, the feast days, you know, books for the coming month. And then they're facing out, because that's a librarian trick, right, Leslie? Face the books out, and then the kids are more likely to pick them up. So that's one way to make sure some of those books you really want them to read, they pick up, you know, because otherwise, if it was mom's idea, they might not grab it. I know some families too, in addition to keeping books on their shelves, they will keep book baskets around the house. It's kind of the idea of strewing materials that you want your kids to find. Like if a kid shows a special interest in something, you could pull all the books from that subject and put them in a basket and leave it for them to find, and pulling certain books out at certain times so that your kids find them. Because I do think when we have the wonderful philosophy of never enough books, that we forget what we have, or our kids don't get a chance to look at them. And even my older kids will see a picture book out and go, oh, I remember that one. And they'll sit down and read it. And like my 15-year-old is reading Goodnight Moon or whatever, because it's a fond memory. It's a friend for them. Yes, basket for books is one helpful way to do it. So we are going to wrap up here in a couple of minutes. If you guys have any additional questions for our mentors, drop those in the chat. Before we close with any final questions, I have a quick challenge question for my mentors. And I am going to take off my video for a second. So my challenge question for you guys is to think of something that you do now as a homeschooler that would shock yourself as a first-year homeschooler. So like you were first year, and now you do something that your first-year self would be like, what? So think it through. Tammy, you have something?
I think that my first-year homeschooler self would just actually plainly be shocked that we are still homeschooling 7 years later.
It's true.
That's awesome. Okay, good answer. Honest, true. How about you, Amy?
I think my first year homeschooling self would be shocked that I don't make the kids finish the book, or I'll shove an assignment and adjust it to the next day, or I don't do every subject every day. I was very much like, no, this is what the schedule says. We have to do this, with my poor first guinea pig child. And now I'm like, yeah, whatever. We'll just do it tomorrow. It's fine. I don't even care. We're doing a 4-day school week this week. That's totally fine. We'll get to it eventually. And we'll get to it eventually. I've learned that now. Eventually you'll get to it. It doesn't all have to be right now.
That's awesome. Very good. Very cool. Margaret, what about you?
Okay, well, with now teenagers, that I would probably be shocked that I do occasionally, or let them sleep in and have a later start time, or that, I am not starting school at 8 o'clock like I used to, that maybe 9 or 9:30. But again, have to do what works for a particular child in your particular season. So I'm not as strict with, okay, have to be up by this time and everything done, and then starting at an exact time. It's kind of more, putting the responsibility on them that, okay, if you want to linger and start a little bit later, as long as everything gets done, okay, it's not worth getting upset over.
That's awesome. Very good. Stacy, what about you? True confessions time.
I don't know, Tammy nailed it. I originally started off saying this is only for kindergarten. Um, aside from that, you know, I am shocked at how much I have learned about my own Catholic faith because I'm a cradle Catholic and yet I know nothing. Honestly, the first year I started, I was like, I'm only going to use secular materials. I don't know what I was thinking. Well, we have so many beautiful materials from Catholic providers. And I'm continually shocked at how I'm getting educated. You know, I'm all the time. I'm just shocked. You know, every time we learn about a new saint or some new weird Catholic custom that's like really cool, or you know, I'm just so shocked. I guess I'm blessed. It's like almost like God put homeschooling in my heart because He needed me to learn stuff.
That is probably part of it.
That's
right.
That's my honest truth.
That's fantastic. No, that's true. We all learn and grow way more than we thought we would. We start out, at least most of us start out thinking this is all about teaching our kids and helping them get to heaven and helping them get to maybe not Harvard, but you know, their future, preparing them for their future. But yeah, along the way we grow and we learn and we are challenged